you. I mean, yeah, this is not my show. This is our show.
Oh, now you tell me. Okay.
I mean, I think we're all still. Hey, Ernie's with us. He said he didn't get to listen to your talk because Ernie was the dude behind the scenes making it all happen. So
Okay.
thank you, Ernie. So you're looking forward to this one. Well, okay, let's start with an intro. Tom just accused me of not being prepared. So I want to show him just how prepared I really am.
Okay.
Okay. So let me just get my document up. So welcome to today's episode where we delve deep into discussion that's at the heart of not just the fitness community, but also touches on critical societal issues. I'm thrilled to bring to you a special live podcast session based on a talk at the CrossFit for Health Summit entitled From Obesity to Opioids, How CrossFit Can Save the World, featuring one of my absolute favorite people in the world, Dr. Tom McCoy. So Dr. McCoy is renowned for his work at the nexus of health, fitness, and societal well-being. And today he's here to shed light on how CrossFit transcends the realm of a mere fitness regimen to become a vital force in addressing some of the most pressing health crises of our time, including the battles against obesity and opioid addiction. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, Karen.
Are you so happy with that intro?
It was pretty good.
Thank you. And I feel like, you know what? Let's talk about the Health Summit. It was a phenomenal event, and I want to hear your take on it before we dive into your presentation.
That'd be fantastic. You gonna turn off your alerts, or do I get to listen to that the whole time?
I thought they were yours.
Uh-uh.
Oh my God. Okay. Tom's spicy today, everyone.
I'm gonna dive in while you work on that. Well, I think the really fascinating thing and uplifting thing about the experience, Karen, was that, you and I, along with a lot of the people who attended in person, have had the experience of participating in the in-person health summits that we used to have in the past. And we haven't had anything like that in years. So to be able to bring everyone back together in person and feel that energy again, and the shared drive to collectively forge a better way to practice the provision of health and medicine in this country, I think was very invigorating for me, because it can be hard when you're kind of grinding and you got your head down and you're doing your thing, and you can very easily forget that there's a lot of people all over the world who are doing similar work. So us coming back together in person and being able to share that time together and kind of renew our drive for what we're doing every day was really special.
It really was. I mean, I remember at the DDCs, you came in your little, and we talk about this all the time, your super cute, what do you call it?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say little or cute, because it's neither of those things.
Okay, you come in your big ass Airstream. Are you happy with that?
That's better. Yeah.
That's so manly. And I mean, what else? Like, you have this like the most adorable little, okay, not adorable. You have this like really manly, masculine setup outside with chairs and like fake grass. And I mean, it's legit.
No, I mean, I was such a fanboy, so it was awesome to be close enough to where I could shoot down from the Bay, where I lived for 25 years, and be able to participate in many of those as possible, and spend time with folks. So I was very, very fortunate to be close to the OGHQ.
Yeah. Hey, and so I mean, when I met you, you were an ER doc working in an emergency department.
Yep.
And now you are not only an affiliate or affiliate co-owner for Sugar and Falls,
Yep.
but you're working with high level athletes like in a new training facility as well. Can you explain, like, just discuss that trajectory and what changed and how it changed, and like from where you came from and where you are now?
Yeah. I started doing, health and performance optimization work even when I was still in California working as an ER doctor. And when we moved back to Ohio, which is where I grew up, and I grew up in the southern part of the state. My wife is from the northern part of the state, so we're up in her neck of the woods now where her family is. I had the opportunity to really expand that practice, and found an amazing business partner in Jen Pishko, who has run the affiliate that we now co-own for almost a decade. So she's, the real deal OG.
Yeah.
And she's, an amazing person who has a master's in nutrition education as well. So, us working together, and with my background and skill set, the goal is really to provide a one-stop shop for anybody that comes into us, right? So we have patients that run the gamut from, their 70s into their 80s to, the fittest woman in the world. So it's a really, really amazing experience.
And how's it feel moving from being in the ER and being like faced with chronic disease to moving into a space where people are owning their health, which is a lot of what the conference was about, right? How do we allow people to own their health?
Yeah, I think that all of us who, have to operate within the mainstream system as it's structured are constantly frustrated and have this kind of gnawing feeling inside of us that there's a better way to do things. But because of how the payment models work and how you have to practice to keep the lights on, you don't really get that opportunity, right? Because when it's done well, with developing a relationship, truly understanding where your client is coming from and what their initial goals are, and being able to participate in motivational interviewing and shared decision making, like those things take time, and you have to create the space to be able to do that. And time is really the most valuable resource, and that's one of the things that the current system as it operates today really robs us of, because unfortunately, especially if you're practicing primary care or preventative medicine, you have to see volume to make a living. And so those two things are diametrically opposed, right? You can't practice good preventative medicine when you have to see, well, can't say you can't. There are a lot of people that do and try very hard, but it is exceptionally challenging to see 20, 30, 40 people a day and develop relationships, establish a community, have a deep understanding of who this person is and how to start to move them in the direction and support them in their healthcare journey. Being in the ER, you're generally seeing people on one of the worst days of their life. And now I get to work with folks who are coming to us with a strong personal motivation to improve their health. So it's really exciting and invigorating professionally.
That's amazing. Sorry, my son is playing video games and he's so loud. I don't know if you can hear him.
No, you're
Okay,
good.
perfect. So Tom, I want to know, like, when I asked you to come and speak at the health conference or the health summit, we didn't really discuss a topic, right? And your topic at the health summit ended up being with the most phenomenal title. The title was From Obesity to Opioids, How CrossFit Can Save the World. And in it, you discussed how CrossFit is more than just a fitness regimen. It's a catalyst for accomplishing challenging feats collectively.
Mhm.
And I love that. Can you, like, for people like Ernie who are listening or people who listen later and weren't able to join us live or in person, can you just give like a synopsis of what it was about?
Yeah, I mean, it was essentially a culmination of a lot of the work that we've been doing in our practice and in our affiliate, and getting to share that with everyone who was in attendance and who was streaming, around the globe, really, which was amazing. I think the really cool part about it is that everybody who was there, for the most part, is doing this work already every day. And one of the things that we try to do with our patients a lot is to educate them so that they can take ownership and have a deeper understanding of why we are emphasizing certain things on their health journey is what we think to be the most important. So having the opportunity to explore some of the science that underscores how impactful not just CrossFit is, but the unique aspect of community and the role that that plays in combating addiction or metabolic syndrome was just very rewarding for me, because folks are already doing the work, and this is about as much about improving the lives of the people that we work with as it is about renewing the commitment and the excitement for the people who are already doing the work every day.
And I think that's exactly what you did. I think that your talk definitely highlighted the work that's being done in affiliates across the world, right? Not just in the United States, not in just in your area, but around the world, and brought this collective sense of community and belonging. I love that you highlighted in your slide deck and in your talk the U.S. Surgeon General's advisory in 2023 of our epidemic of loneliness and isolation, and how CrossFit as a community allows such a sense of belonging. You highlighted some individual successes. Can you speak more to those, or would you prefer to focus on something else?
No, I think that the people and the individual stories that we highlighted are reflected in people in every affiliate around the globe. And so I think that one of the things we hoped that the presentation would do is that, folks would see the examples of the individuals that we had worked with, but I'm sure that their mind was immediately flooded with all the individuals that they work with in their affiliate on a daily basis. And whether it's overcoming addiction and the role that community plays in leveraging our ability to do that, when you combine that with high intensity interval training and what's happening on a neurochemical level, to combating depression. And one of the things in the research that we highlighted in the talk was how a sense of connection and the ability to confide in others has been shown in studies to be one of, if not the most powerful, modifiable lifestyle factors that we can employ. And even in my own practice, in doing the preparation for the talk, when I am working now with folks who are having periods of depression or anxiety or what have you, how much that now has elevated the importance of me communicating them developing a connection to community has been really interesting and powerful too, when I've gotten the feedback when folks have employed that. Right. And so that part, in doing this talk and getting it ready, has really kind of reorganized and emphasized certain parts of our practice and how we communicate with individuals and elevate the importance of human connection and how that actually changes our physiology.
How does human connection change our physiology?
Well, there's different pathways that can impact the different topics and categories that we discussed. I think when you're talking about metabolic health, one of the studies that we highlighted talks about the principle of the conserved transcriptional response to adversity. And essentially what that means is that when we are socially isolated, it actually influences how our genes are expressed. And in doing so, because we're socially isolated, right, this was a beneficial aspect, right, thousands of years ago, because when you were isolated and you weren't with your tribe, right, the likelihood of injury or attack or infection was much higher, right? So biologically, we actually see a cascade of increased signaling for inflammatory markers and different cytokines and chemokines that, in a different age were beneficial from a survival standpoint. Now, right, in an isolated setting, which is something that we see so often now in all of these health challenges, things that were once from an evolutionary standpoint beneficial now become a detriment, right? And you can talk about, how we, relate to highly processed and refined foods that are calorically dense and the drive to search those out and how that would have been beneficial, right, thousands of years ago. But now, with no food scarcity for, a lot of the individuals in the industrialized world, that becomes a huge detriment, right? And one of the driving factors behind obesity and metabolic dysfunction. And the examples go on for all of these categories, right? But I think the understanding that just that lack of social connection is literally changing how your genome is being expressed and the downstream chemical signaling that drives metabolic dysfunction, right? And that concept of an immunometabolic syndrome, right, of social isolation, I think is just a beautiful term because it really encapsulates how impactful a lack of community can be.
Oh my God, Tom, this is mind blowing. Actually, going to the slide where you highlight that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that to me was just absolutely incredible. I'm not sharing the slides. Yeah, loneliness and immunometabolic syndrome. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that I had never heard of, right? And so this happens when we are socially isolated as human beings because our gene expression has not caught up to where we are socially from an evolutionary standpoint.
Correct. We're responding from an evolutionary psychology standpoint to our current environment with a genome that is designed to respond to a much different physical environment. And the really interesting thing about loneliness, which is more of a subjective experience, and social isolation, which can be categorized more objectively, is that they have different influences and impacts, and they're pretty similar, but they're different constructs, right? And another study that we talked about that was highlighted in Michael Easter's book that we mentioned talks about the Savannah theory of happiness, right? And so what they did was look at different population densities and levels of happiness and stress responses to adversity in these two groups. And there was essentially an inverse relationship between people who are in a more densely populated setting and happiness levels, which could be somewhat counterintuitive, right? Because you think, okay,
Yeah.
well, somebody lives in the city, right? They're going to be more social, they'll have more connections, and they're not quote unquote socially isolated. But loneliness is a subjective construct, right? So you can live in a city, but you can still be very lonely, right? And what you see is that most folks who live in more of a rural setting and smaller communities tend to have tighter relationships and constructs with the community size that our brains are designed to benefit most optimally from, right? And that was the whole example when we talked about the ranges of this Dunbar's number, right, which most people will be familiar with, but that concept of how physiologically we tend to be happiest in groups of between 100 to 200 people, right? Which is why CrossFit is so amazing, right? Because the average affiliate size is around 150. And so, literally built into the design of the methodology is this optimal social setting to downregulate all of these inflammatory processes. And I mean, we haven't even talked about the benefit that being part of a community plays in habit formation and in being consistent, right? And this is something that, for folks who want to learn more about this, James Clear's work is really powerful here. His book, Atomic Habits, is fantastic at describing the influence and power of the tribe or community. and how that can help us adhere to habits, and how it is so much more challenging for us as individuals to buck the tribe and go a different way, right? So as CrossFitters, right, those are some of your closest friends, those are the people you see every day. If you decide that you're going to buck the system and not do what everybody else is doing, it's very hard to do that, right? And we're designed to not fall into that trap, right? Because a couple thousand years ago, going against the tribe gets you kicked out, and then you're on your own, and the likelihood of injury or death goes up significantly, right? So a lot of these concepts of optimizing how our genes are expressed and what that translates into from a physiology standpoint is really looking through the lens of evolutionary biology and trying to live our lives in a way that our genetics and our bodies were designed to.
So how do you, I don't like the word optimizing, but how do you optimize that? And how do you speak to your patients or your clients or the people that you deal with in your recommendations?
Yeah, I think, philosophically, because these things are so important, we utilize what we call a human first lifestyle concepts approach, right? And it comes and applies to our 80-year-olds just as it does to our elite games level athletes or NFL players or whomever it is, right? Because if you're a healthy and a happy human, you're going to be a better professional athlete to start with, right? And to, quote Coach Glassman, right? Our needs vary in degree, not kind, right? So all of us need community. All of us need metabolic health, right? All of us need adequate recovery protocols. And we need a varied strength and conditioning program that's going to hit all of the key components that we need for optimized health span and lifespan, right? So everybody needs that. So we start there with everybody. Now, most of the time with elite athletes, right, they're pretty good in a lot of these categories, not all of them. And depending on the sport, right, CrossFit's great because it's combining strength training, which is going to build that lean body mass, which we talked a lot about at the conference on how important that is for health span and lifespan. We do a ton of high intensity interval work, which for the most part, has CrossFitters with outstanding VO2s, which is also directly related to optimal lifespan and quality of years. And so that is where we start with everybody. And it's about incorporating the things that all of us need as humans to function optimally, right? And for a lot of people, it's just a lack of exposure to the elements, right? So just being outside and how much time you're spending outside and what time of day. Our physiology is intimately tied to that. And to function optimally, we can't ignore that, right? We are not designed to sit inside all day and then be exposed to sympathetic drivers through social media or work emails or dysfunctional spectrums of light in the evenings, right? And that's what our world looks like for a lot of us, right? So for a lot of individuals, it's just kind of organizing those foundational pillars first, and then we can move from the macro to the micro, right? So once we've optimized our foundational pillars, then we can start to focus on optimizing function on the cellular level, right? And that's where we're looking at micronutrients and antioxidant levels and other things that can influence the smaller percentages to improve health. Now, I think what happens a lot of time, right, in the quote unquote functional space or what have you, is that you lose the forest for the trees, and a lot of time gets spent talking about supplements or this, that, and the other when people have not developed the daily routines or habits that are going to support optimal health, right? So we generally don't even look at those things for most individuals until we feel like we're in a really good place with how our day is constructed.
What does that optimal construction of a day look like?
Well, I think some time outside is paramount, right?
In the morning.
And so, well, at different times of the day for different reasons,
Okay.
right? And Andrew Huberman is a great resource for this, so people certainly don't need to listen to me talk about this again. But I try really hard to spend at least 20 to 30 minutes outside every morning, right? I try and accumulate a certain amount of direct time outside during the day if I can, and then I try and be outside in the evening. And if you can do those things, the impact on optimizing your circadian rhythm and your sleep cycle, which is foundational to everything that we want to accomplish from a physical and mental, emotional health standpoint, is going to be improved, right? And then it's just talking about how we're designing your strength and conditioning program to make sure that we're hitting all of the components that we need to. And if people are too focused, right, in one area, then we're seeking to find balance. And nutritionally, then it's fueling and it's timing and how that's impacting recovery, right? And a lot of us in general are eating too late in the evening or grazing after dinner, and the impact that has on sleep and driving insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction for a lot of people, unless you're a professional athlete, can be very impactful. And so just looking at those steps and trying to include these key aspects in your day as much as you can is a great place for folks to start, right? Because that will outweigh the impact of any individual supplement that you could take.
I mean, that in itself, like, and that's something it sounds like it's not something easy to implement, but anyone can find 20 minutes to go outside three times a day.
Well, I
And
mean,
it doesn't cost stuff.
not,
Right?
I mean, it's not anyone, right? And I don't, and again, it's very similar to a lot of the things that we talk about in CrossFit, right? Which is why this methodology works so well, because it's simple, but it's not easy. And finding time in your schedule when all of us have responsibilities, be them kids or work or, speaking as a recovering shift worker, right? I mean, my life was upside down for many, many years from a circadian standpoint. And I experienced what that does to metabolic health and physiology, right? And I think it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it, is because I know what happens when you ignore those things. And I also have experienced personally what happens when you get that stuff in check. And so I don't want to sit here saying that this is easy for everybody, because it's not. The world is crazy and we all have responsibilities. And, the enemy of good is perfection here. So what we're trying to do is just educate people on the core principles. And then as we can, right, through a motivational interviewing standpoint, after we've discussed, how we can pull these levers, then it's a discussion about, okay, understanding this principle, knowing now what you know about how this impacts physiology, what do you think you could do with the constraints that are placed on your schedule and your life through all the things that you have to do to try and incorporate some of this into your routine regularly? And it's different for everybody, right? And that's why none of the work that we do with individuals is cookie cutter, right? And that's why we spend so much time with people, is because you need that space to be able to find strategies and protocols that folks can actually do.
Yeah.
Because I can sit here and tell the same people the same thing with exact minutes and what have you, and they'll smile and nod and they'll walk out of here like, there's no fucking way I can do that.
Right.
I got to pay the bills. I got to be at work, before the sun comes up. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I think if all of us just give ourselves a little bit of grace and acknowledge that, at different points in our lives and at different times, like, our ability to execute on things is going to be different. But as much as we can start to incorporate practices and principles that are going to minimize the negative impact on how we're having to live our lives at the current moment. That's where you start to really bring people benefit, right?
I love that. I think I just published a talk that you and I did for RevitaFest last year on habits for health and performance on my YouTube channel. So people can go listen to that if they want to dive more in depth on how to change, habits, because you're so good at that. And the way that you put it forward is definitely manageable and doable and can be implemented in various degrees, right? As the person allows for it. I want to move back to addiction. And how the CrossFit methodology community is able to combat that. Because Jose mentioned that he loved that you put dopamine stimulants we have in the CrossFit box, that you spoke about that. Can we talk about that a bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first you have to give credit where credit is due, and Dale King, right, and what he's done in Portsmouth, Ohio, and which was really very well chronicled in the documentary that was made on the work that he's doing there, Small Town Strong, right? So everybody listening, if you haven't seen that, I highly encourage you to check it out because it's just a beautiful story about the power of CrossFit. And we'll actually be seeing Dale this weekend. We're competing with him in a competition down there, the Cold War Games, that raises money for the Counseling Center, which is this program
Oh,
that they operate every year. So it's Jen and I and Dale and Sarah on a squad. And Sarah's the person that I talked about in the conference. I think
yes.
this will be our fifth competition on a team with Sarah.
Wait, so Sarah runs Dale's office now, right? She's the one with had the purple hair in the pictures.
Yeah.
Got
Yes. So she runs Spartan Solutions. She's the manager there, which is one of Dale's companies,
Okay.
which is amazing. But yeah, so to get back to your question, fitness has been identified as a very impactful tool to utilize in the recovery process, right? Because what happens through addiction, right, is that we are having these super physiologic levels of dopamine released, right, which really drive the searching or the seeking behavior, and then also the reward pathways that happen when we utilize, right? And it's both of them. And what fitness and adversity and hardship does is it allows us to begin to release dopamine through much more sustainable pathways to bypass and circumvent these dysfunctional ones that were laid down through the use of illicit substances. And the beautiful component of CrossFit and what it does is that there is some research, and a lot of this is based in animal studies, so I don't want to overstate the impact, but there is research that shows that oxytocin can have an augmenting or an amplifying effect on this dopaminergic signaling, right? So what you're doing through high intensity interval work, right, in CrossFit or in the affiliate or in the WOD, is almost amplified or magnified, right, by the release of oxytocin, right? And one of the most powerful ways to release oxytocin, right, is through community connection and friendship and human touch, in addition to loud music and animals and all. It's like, again, all of the things that are elegantly built into the affiliate experience, right? So it really is this perfect storm of hormone and neurotransmitter therapy that we engage in every day by participating in high intensity interval work and strength training in a community setting where we're working towards a shared collective goal together, right? Doing hard things together. And again, if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, like this is the shit that we did every day, right? We would set forth together, right, in small groups of individuals, foraging for food, right, defending ourselves, working together for the betterment of the tribe, right? And so we're able to access, right, and amplify a lot of those physiologic pathways that, are established, right, through our genetics and physiology, but unfortunately lay dormant for many of us because of how our lives are constructed today.
I love you so much. Like you are so good at verbalizing these topics, and the truth about it that that not many people get out there. So firstly, what came up was, I wrote a book 10 years ago called Sugar Free, and my publisher has asked me to revamp it and republish it next year, January 2025. And
Awesome.
what I was, just hearing you speak and from the conference, like the biggest component that was missing in that book to me was this fitness. How do we use fitness and the sense of community and belonging to combat addiction? Not just sugar addiction, but like and everyone's addicted, right? Like if you look at the social media, video games, like there's so much addiction that's rife in the society. And I had a conversation with Graciano yesterday where he was talking about pleasure and pain.
Yep.
And how, this concept of how when we do CrossFit and it's painful and we're doing hard things,
Yes.
it combats that pleasure, the pleasurable component that we're constantly seeking that we can't get. So it balances that out. But then also I'm organizing another event. When you were talking about like how when people come together with music and community, So I want to do a follow-up to the CrossFit for Health Summit,
Oh,
the
it's
CrossFit
amazing.
for Health Festival.
Okay.
So I want you to be there, and I want you to do a workshop or whatever you want on this, on further expanding on what you brought forward at the Health Summit. But we can talk more about that offline
Yeah,
for sure.
that would be amazing. I would love to do that. I mean, I think that, for us, the ability to come together and connect in person, we saw the value of that a couple weeks ago. And we have to keep that momentum going, so that everyone can be reinvigorated to push the work that they're doing forward. And this is really geared towards, I think, giving all of our coaches who work with, CrossFit affiliate members every day a deeper understanding of how impactful their profession is at improving health across the board, and how it's designed makes it really one of the most effective approaches and methodologies and systems to improve from a holistic standpoint, right? Biopsychosocial, an individual's health and well-being physically and emotionally. That's so exciting. I'm so glad you're going to do that. Do you have a date set, Karin?
Um,
You gonna let everybody know?
Well, I would love to do the last weekend of October or the first weekend of November.
Okay.
Just trying to figure out when the Rogue Invitational is going to be. Obviously, don't want to do it over the same time.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I started working on this proposal maybe 2 days ago.
Okay.
I was going to reach out to you. Still need to take it to CrossFit. But hey, I want to do it regardless of whether they want to be involved or not, right?
Yeah.
I think we need to do activities, create situations, and opportunities for people to come together, because so much of the success of the CrossFit for Health Summit, I believe, was us coming together in person, together with our shared experiences, right? And to hear from people like yourselves who have chosen an alternate path that I can imagine is really hard for you as a healthcare professional as well, to go against a system that is so sick. And I think CrossFit highlighted what you were saying about the healthcare system in a clip that they recently posted. But not only how can we support the community, but how can we support you?
Yeah. Well, I think it's as much about, we can't wait for this to be fixed by, the government or by the medical system or by CrossFit, right? That it is going to be a grassroots movement of everyone doing this work on their own and figuring it out.
Yeah.
And it's been really amazing since the conference, how many healthcare practitioners have reached out to us, right, to learn more about what we do, and how, we've figured this out. And something that I'm always very upfront right before we start is that what we do is not necessarily the solution for you. And it's the same philosophy and methodology that applies to a CrossFit affiliate, right? That as an affiliate coach, owner, we should always be asking ourselves, what are the needs of our community, right? How can I serve my individual community? Because they're all different,
Yeah.
right? And, as examples, right, in Dale's community, it was addiction.
Yeah.
Right. And so he leveraged the power of fitness and community to combat addiction. Right. For many of us, it's combating metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance, visceral adiposity, and how that is directly related to the biggest killers, right, in our nation, right? Whether it's cardiovascular disease or strokes or cancer or dementia, right? People are doing that work every day. But the execution, right, and the examples of how it gets done in every community are unique. And that is a huge value add for us. And one of the benefits of having these retreats and us coming together is that we can share best practices
Yeah.
and highlight the approaches that we all use, which are going to be unique. And the people who are there who want to learn more can then start to listen to all of these approaches and take pieces from each one and say, you know what, I think this could work for me. Like, Jen and I had a call yesterday with a group who was at the conference from Hancock Health. They are in Indiana, and they have developed a program where physicians write a fitness prescription for individuals in the community who are getting discharged from the hospital. And their CEO started this, right, with a single CrossFit affiliate, just with the goal of improving the health in their county. And they don't quote me on the numbers because they told me, but I haven't had a chance to look at my notes. But they essentially went from the 14th fittest county, and this is right in the Midwest, right, which is a hotbed of metabolic dysfunction and addiction. They, over the course of, I think they've been operating for 9 or 10 years, and went from 14th or 15th to the third fittest county, right, in Indiana. And now they have 3 affiliates that are all integrated into the healthcare system. And the healthcare system actually pays for the first 9 weeks for participation. And people get biometric assessment, they get
No.
bioimpedance studies, they get 3 one-on-one coaching sessions a week. And then after that, they have the opportunity to join the affiliate. And they have an 80% success rate at people completing that program and then joining the affiliate. And he gave me their revenue numbers for what they're doing. I'd be shocked if they weren't making a significant profit now. And that's the beautiful thing about this, right? Is that you can do the right thing and make money, right?
I
It
love that.
does not have to be mutually exclusive. And it doesn't always start that way.
No.
But if you follow your heart and follow your passion and you start doing the work, right, and you're always moving in the right direction, the money generally will take care of itself. And again, easier said than done. Like, these things take time. But I think the work that they're doing is just a beautiful example, right? Because this is leveraging and working within the dysfunctional system, right? And bringing the beauty, right, of CrossFit to people who never would have been exposed to it before. And so now practitioners and physicians in the community who don't know jack about CrossFit or anything else just refer their patients to them because they don't have the time to do this work, but they've seen how impactful it is in improving people's health and well-being, right? So these are the types of examples, right, and the work that's being done all over the country that all of us need to hear about so that we can go back to our hospital administrators or, places of work or CEOs who, hopefully have charitable money that they need to donate at the end of the year to this, that, and the other. What a beautiful way to gift someone health than to give them a CrossFit on-ramping, subscription for 6 weeks.
Oh, and everything that is so magical and everything that allows the person to own their own health comes in that package, in the
Yep.
CrossFit affiliate, in the box, community, fitness, nutrition, like absolutely every component we need.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And I'd see a question down there from
Great.
Craig. Yeah, to answer your question, Craig, I told them to, and Cody and Sarah are their names. And so they have their L1s. They're also trained and have degrees in kinesiology. So they're a medically certified CrossFit or gym, right? Which brings its own set of benefits. But I told them after our talk yesterday, I'm like, get your slide deck ready because the next conference that we have, I want you guys to come to talk about this work. Like, we all need to be sharing what's happening, right? Because there's a lot of us that are working within the system still who have no idea where to begin, right? But even with collecting this data and being able to take a couple of slides to your hospital CEO and say, look, with a pretty small monetary investment, you have the ability to change the health of your entire county drastically, right? And ultimately, in 5 or 10 years, it can be a revenue generator for you.
Well, I've just added them to the lineup.
Yes, you should.
Festival that we're having. So they're going to be there. And then, and then I also want to draw attention to people outside of the space, outside of the CrossFit space, who are doing the good things, like Gabrielle Lyon with her Forever Strong movement. I think there's so many components that overlap, and that obviously like the whole fitness component is not necessarily what she promotes within her community, but she definitely does do the nutrition, metabolic health component. And then my friend Kenny Santucci, who you probably met at the CrossFit for Health Summit, he's got the most phenomenal event called Strong New York.
Oh, okay.
That's October 5th, and that brings together like fitness and health and with speakers and workouts and like the whole fun festival vibe that we're talking about as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to highlight what you're saying, I couldn't agree with you more, right? Because as we know, CrossFit's for anybody, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not about, putting one arm behind somebody's back and twisting it and shoving them into an affiliate, right? So there are a lot of different ways to access varied strength and conditioning training and community that aren't necessarily in an affiliate setting. And we should be supporting all of that, because if we're going to truly make a difference across the nation and around the world, it's going to be by highlighting the importance and impact of a lifestyle concepts approach at decreasing our dependence on the dysfunctional sick care system, right? And we can do that through many different methodologies, as long as they include, right, a varied training program and community. We're going to be moving in the right direction.
I love that. I love that. Once again, together we can do what we cannot do alone, right?
Yep.
And so when we join forces with people who don't necessarily have the same name or are exactly in the same community as us, but have the same mission, I think that's where we create the change.
Yes. Yeah. Power in numbers for sure. Right. And this is one of the things that's so special about the conference, right? Is that once we come together and we can start to speak with a collective voice about what is most important and have data and examples to support that, then you can really start to go after the money that's going to support this going further, right?
Yeah.
And whether that's from payers, be they employers or insurers or the state or the federal government, there's so many ways that money can be used in a much more effective manner, right? Just to provide people access and transportation to fitness and community, right? The impact on health, we've already seen. I mean, if you look at the Surgeon General's report, right, just that community connection combined with fitness, a lack of community raised your risk for heart disease and stroke by almost 30%, right? It was worse than smoking. It was worse than obesity. Like, social isolation and loneliness is just devastating, right? And that's what was so cool with what Nicole was talking about with her CrossFit bus, right?
Yeah.
Like we legit should be getting funding to be able to go to people's houses, right? And our senior population, right, is one of the most that's socially isolated, to be able to pick them up and take them to a class and take them home, right?
Yeah.
Like the impact that has on cognitive well-being, right? The strength and conditioning component to preserve lean body mass, to mitigate the disaster from falls and be able to get yourself up off the ground. The basic nutritional education that comes, from CrossFit, and then developing a community that's going to support you, right, in those habits and goals. Like that's 85 to 90% of the battle, right? And then medications, all the doctoring stuff is just there to make sure that there aren't things you don't know, right? And that's the role that the physician and the traditional healthcare system should be serving. And if you get your arm chopped off and you need to have it dealt with, and it's great to have an ER there for that, right? But the way that the system is utilized now and the expectations that we have that it's going to fix what's driving our epidemics of addiction, disease, and despair is it's not going to happen.
No, it's not. Tom, I think one of the biggest things I've heard from, one of my biggest frustrations in putting together the events for CrossFit when Greg was there and having done the Health Summit now is like, it's so amazing, everyone coming together, the sense of community and belonging, and then it just goes away. And also, not everyone is as entrepreneurial as you or able to take the risk as you have to step up by yourself and to create something. Medical professionals want, like, this is what I've heard time and time again, a protocol, a way to do this, an outline, like, how do we do this? How do we provide that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's something that Jen and I talk a lot about. I
Yeah.
think a really important thing to highlight is that I was not entrepreneurial by nature. And that I was fortunate, right, to cross paths with Jen, who's run her own businesses her entire life and run this affiliate for a decade, who believed in the work and the mission. And slowly, right, by exposing myself to this and building out our strategy and our protocols and how we were working with individuals and seeing the results, that gave me the confidence to know that this would be successful, right? And I think to expect that, people who are, working in an inpatient setting in a hospital can flip a switch tomorrow and pop
No.
open a shop and be successful, like that's not how this is going to work. And so part of what needs to happen is that we need to develop training and protocols and community support networks so that everyone from, the frontline CrossFit, affiliate coach to the, Quadra is a great example, the ICU level physician can start to learn and understand how they can incorporate this work into their daily practice. And then eventually, if you are passionate about it and it makes sense to you, it reaches a tipping point to where it can become your full-time profession. Right. And I use the Robin Hood analogy a lot, right? It's like for years, it was, robbing from the rich to pay for my passion work. Right. And with enough time and dedication and blood, sweat, and tears, right, that passion can become your full-time profession, but it takes time.
I think this is a perfect way to end. I know there's more coming from you, and I hope that we can share more of it. So, where can people find you if they're looking for you?
Yeah. So, a couple of things I want to mention before we wrap up.
Yeah.
So, from a call to action standpoint, we do have the Restart a Heart campaign.
Yes. Sorry, that was
Um,
the question I had.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But I do really want to encourage everybody to take advantage of this. It's all about connecting to your communities at home, and providing a life-saving device to community groups who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. And so that's on our website at McCoy-medical.com. So you can go there to learn more. It's very easy. You host a 40-minute training session, at your gym or your box or your place of work. You don't have to be an affiliate to do this. It doesn't have to be CrossFit. And that group gets a free AED. And if your box doesn't have one, you can buy one for $900. So this is all happening on June 1st. So I really want to encourage everybody to please participate in that. If you're interested in learning more about the work that we do at McCoy Medical, and our method clinic methodology, there is a form that you can sign up there, that we're collecting information and demographics so that we can contact folks when we have more resources to kind of bring everybody along with the work that we're doing. So the website's a great place to go. I'm on Instagram at Vital Human Doc. So that's there. We're on Instagram at McCoy Medical as well. And I want to encourage folks, if they want to drop in and train with us either in Cleveland or in Nashville, because we have offices in both locations. The new Proven HQ is next level. It's hard to describe. We coached a class with best hour of their day there with 140 people in it a month ago at one time in one class. Like the facility is just massive. It's so beautiful. But I want to encourage folks to come and connect individually and on a personal level, so that we can stay together and continue to push the needle in the right direction.
I love it. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for all you do. You have been, honestly, since the first moment I met you, just a very bright light in my life, both personally and professionally. And I really want to thank you for that.
Oh, that's very, very thoughtful, Karen. I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on and to talk about the conference, and more importantly, how we can continue to push the movement forward, which I think is really the task before all of us.
Yep, that's more to come on that. So thanks everyone for joining. Ernie, Craig, Ray, Jose, Sloppy. You guys are the best for being here. Thank you, thank you,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you. We will chat soon.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.